this was all circulating around the base, that a giant had been killed, but no one was supposed to talk about it.
I saw 3 long, bony fingers reach up underneath the door, curl up to grab it, and then disappear.
When he came over to me, dude, he slithered over to me.
And this giant comes out of the cave, and they're all frozen. And he starts running and firing at this giant. Well, the giant moves. He's got a spear in one hand, and he's running really fast and spears Dan and holds him up like this. Somebody yells, shoot him in the face, shoot him in the face. They basically decapitate him.
Got closer. When he got about 15 yards away from me, I raised that 12 gauge and I blowed his head off.
I feel something pulling at my leg, and I look over and there are 2 small gray entities pulling at me. And they're literally, I'm getting pulled off the bed.
I reached my hand into this bush and I touched air. Couldn't breathe and I couldn't move because I know I'm seeing a monster.
I am your host, Tony Merkel. Thank you for being here. If you have a wild story or an experience you want to share on the show, go ahead and shoot me an email. My email address is theconfessionals@theconfessionalspodcast.com. That's theconfessionals@theconfessionalspodcast.com. Or go to the website, theconfessionalspodcast.com, hit the contact section, and you can reach me that way as well. Either way works for me. Just get a hold of me. If you want to hear more shows every week, on Thursdays, we release a bonus show to members only on the website. So go to the website, theconfessionalspodcast.com, hit the join button and become a member today if that interests you. We are also offering emergency preparedness food, and that's because the world has gone down the crapper. That's pretty much why we are offering such things. If this time last year you said stock up on toilet paper, most people would look at you sideways. Now, nothing sideways. So go to preparewiththeconfessionals.com. That's preparewiththeconfessionals.com, and you can get yourself emergency supplies, including food that lasts up to 25 years, shelf life, and if you get a 4-week supply, we will knock $100 off for you right there on the spot. Now, this week we have Seth coming on the show, and Seth has a lot of great experiences to share with us, and he starts off by talking about lucid dreaming and how he was able to control his dreams, and as his dreams were able to be controlled, the nightmares seemed to stop for the most part. Let's get to Seth right now. All right, today we got Seth on the show. Seth, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Tony. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome, man. So I'm glad you're here, and you're over there in beautiful, sunny Southern California, man. So we were just talking about how it is out there, and it does sound like a paradise to me. I've only ever heard good things out there, so no wonder why you guys are so comfortable out there and relaxed. I mean, why wouldn't you be? Up here in the Northeast, we're uptight, you know? We got bad weather, and it sucks.
Well, unfortunately, despite all the good weather, there's plenty of grumpy people out here in Southern California, man. So I don't think it's just the weather being a factor, man. I wish it was.
Oh man. All right. Well, listen, you've had lots of different experiences throughout your life. It starts out as a kid with lucid dreaming. So if you want, just kind of start us off with your childhood and kind of walk us into these experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was raised in a Christian household, and ever since I was a young kid, I was always plagued with nightmares. And, I guess the purpose of me bringing up this dream part of my life is just to verify something, I guess, later on in my life. But I was always plagued with nightmares. It'd almost be on a nightly routine. My parents would come into me screaming, come into the room to me screaming, and just being delirious and crying. And it got to the point to where I kind of got numb to morbid things, because it would always be very morbid nightmares and very vivid. And I got to the point in my life when I got older, maybe in my teens, late teens, that I found a way to wake myself up from the dreams, because it was a place I don't want to be, whether it started off right away as a nightmare or something you could kind of notice creeping in, like, hey, this is going to be an evil dream. I was able to force myself to wake up to the point of where it was like a ripcord I could just pull when I wanted to, just to exit out when if I knew I was going bad. And so this got to a point to where, and even in my early 20s, I would still have these nightmares. And it got to the point to where at the time I didn't know that it was called lucid dreaming. I mean, I had no idea what any of this was, because back then there was no, podcasts and stuff. I didn't even have an iPhone until maybe like 2012. So I was a late bloomer, but I didn't know what anything was called. I thought my experiences were unique and stuff, but I found out, it's called lucid dreaming, where you can control your dreams. So I got to the point of where I was starting to able to control my dreams and control the outcomes or control what I could do, because I realized once I could exit the dream on command, I knew that I was in a dream. I think that's the biggest shift in your mind, knowing that you're actually in a dream state, and it's almost like a consciousness inside of your dream. But once I realized that, and these nightmares are still coming, I was able to start manipulating my dreams and controlling them, not 100%, but a good majority of the time. And I remember this one dream specifically. I was in my friend's backyard, and there was this older Chinese man, maybe in some sort of monk's attire, and I was standing by a wall, and there was this big long curtain between me and him, and it was blowing. So these ripples in the curtain were blowing towards me, and he was on the other side, and he had these whited out eyes and looked very creepy. And you get that evil kind of feeling in your dream that something was going wrong. And as each ripple blowed in the curtain towards me and he would reappear again, he would be closer. And then another ripple would blow and he'd be closer, and he kept coming until he was like face to face with me. Well, although it was frightening, I realized at that point, that I was in control, that this is my dream and I'm going to do what I want. So what I did is I hit rewind on my dream and rewound him going away from me. So I pushed him back, basically rewound the dream, that segment. And I realized at that point, it's like, I'm in control. I'm no longer going to be plagued by these nightmares. And it's a pretty interesting experience. And sometime, I don't know if it was after that dream or sometime after that, I stopped getting nightmares, man, really. I still get them occasionally, but it was almost like when I conquered my dream, I no longer, I defeated it in a sense, and I no longer was plagued by them. And which the reason why I brought up my dreams is because later on in my life, when I had a sleep paralysis experience, I knew for certain that it wasn't a dream, because I had so much experience, I guess, if you will, in my dreams, that I knew for sure when something is a dream or when it's not. But I just wanted to start on that because, my parents were always sensitive to me because, I grew up in a Christian household. They're always God-fearing people, and they were always sensitive to, the demonic and the attacks that the demonic realm brings. So they were never shutting me down. And, my dad actually just brought this up a couple months ago, and I was talking to him about, he was like, you remember all the nightmares you used to have? And I said, yeah. And, I still vividly remembered some reoccurring, but, I guess just moving on in my life, in my teens, one of my first jobs I had was, it's a first or second job. It was a dishwasher at a restaurant. And so, the dishwashers, they were usually the, first in and the last out. And, with this shift that I had, I usually worked the later shift. And, when I was raised in this private community in Southern California. It was actually, I think at the time, either the largest or the second largest private community in Southern California. It had a lake in it and had their own city hall and police department, fire department. And so there was at the time around 30,000 people or so in this private community. And they had their own lodge and restaurant in there. And so I worked in this restaurant, and it wasn't really known, the rumors wasn't really known to the community, but within the staff there, that the place was haunted, because before that, I don't remember exactly when, but they completely tore down and renovated this whole lodge, and it was a beautiful renovation. But before there, it kind of looked like this wooden log cabin, but I think they redid it in either the late 90s or early 2000s, because this took place in like 2003 or 4, when I was about 16, something like that. And so 16, 17. So anyways, the rumor there was the place was haunted, and that a chef, I believe, a worker there, I think it was a chef if I remember, hung himself in the basement. And so there was even the rumor that, well, hey, that's why they rebuilt the place, or maybe that was the final straw decision for them to tear down and rebuild. I don't know for certain. I actually tried Googling some stuff about it. I couldn't find anything, if somebody hung themselves or not, but that was just the word between the staff there. So anyways, some of my experiences there while I worked there, because I'd always work late, they'd have weddings, and it was like a 3-story building. And the middle floor had the kitchen and the majority of the restaurant, the bar, and then the top floor had more seating. And then the bottom floor was an elevator from the kitchen, and you ride the elevator down, and they had a hallway with a walk-in freezer, a walk-in fridge, pantry with storage. It was a pretty nice facility. So anyways, one of the experiences I had there is one time I was mopping up in the kitchen. I was closing up. We would get out of there maybe like 1, 2 a.m. Depends on how busy the restaurant was that night. And I was mopping down the aisles. And as I was mopping, I saw somebody run by me. Now, it wasn't unusual for a sous chef to come back late, because they were usually like the second to last ones to leave besides us. So it wasn't unusual for them to forget something or come back, and they would lock up the building, and we didn't have keys. So once you exited, you were locked out. So they would lock it. And I thought maybe, because I remember it was a white person or someone wearing white, like chef's attire, because they would wear, those white coats, or, how chefs do that button up. I don't know the specific name for them, but
yeah.
And I saw a person run by, so I was thinking, okay, it was just a chef that ran by. Well, I went down the aisle and looked around, no one was there. I went out in the restaurant, no one was there, and I checked in the parking lot, no one was there, which was a trip to me, because I know for sure I saw somebody run by me as I was mopping. I mean, to the point of where I went and checked if a person was there, and there was no one there, nor even a car in the parking lot besides mine, which tripped me out, and having in the back of your mind that the place is haunted, when little things like this happen, it only adds fear to you, in the moment. I wasn't trying to find hauntings there. I was just working, and if something would happen, like, okay, well, that's strange. It kind of adds to the rumors. There's another time where I was downstairs mopping in the hallway, where they had the walk-in fridge and the refrigerator in front of they had these big industrial locking doors on the fridge and refrigerator and the freezer, and with a little glass window in the door. And then when you open the door, there's these big plastic flaps that hang down, probably to keep flies out and such. So when you walk through the flaps, obviously they would sway back and forth. Well, one time, again, I was the only person there, and I was mopping, and I noticed out of the corner of my eye something moving, and through the window of the fridge, I saw the flaps swinging back and forth like as if somebody just walked through it. Which freaked me out, because nobody just walked through the door, because I was the only one there. I mean, even looking through the window, no one was there. which just being there alone and dark and a 16-year-old isn't a comfortable place to be.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
and another time I was out taking trash out of the back door, and when I was out taking trash, the elevator dinged back up. And because I wrote it down to throw out the trash, dumpsters were on the bottom store, dinged back up, and I'm out there listening to it. I'm thinking, okay, who's here? And then it dinged, and I heard it go back down, and I heard the doors open while I was outside, right outside. And I started freaking out, and I didn't want to go inside. So I walked out around the building to check the parking lot because I was hoping to see one of the chef's cars there to give me some relief. Well, there's no cars there, just mine again. Which freaked me out. So I don't know anything about elevators, and I don't know if they go through some sort of check system where once a week or once a day it dings up and down. I'm sure an elevator technician could probably confirm that, but working that shift many times and being there all the time, I never heard the elevator do that error. So it just kind of, all these things, I realize that they're not big significant things, and all these things could probably be rationalized away and justified by naturalistic means. But I think it's just an accumulation of events coupled with the rumors, as well as other people's story. I had a manager there who was talking to a waitress, and they told me, I knew both of them pretty well, and they told me as they're sitting there in the office, they had there's a picture on the wall, and it flew off the wall, and then it just dropped, but it flew off about 3 feet, and both of them are standing. There was no thump or someone next door hitting the wall. Both of them are looking at each other, freaking out, and ran out of the room. And I had another buddy who was a server who he was working there late cleaning up, and he was actually a dishwasher before he became a server. So he said he was there late cleaning up, and one time he was out, or he was in the kitchen, and there was double swinging doors on two sides of the kitchen for the servers to go in and out, and one side led to a tile floor hallway where there were some offices. And he said he heard, when he was the only one there, it sounded like somebody that had a full tray of dishes dropped the dishes in the hallway, like a loud noise. And he freaked him out. So you went out there to look, okay, maybe a vase fell off a table, or, who knows. And he went out there, he went to the bar, he checked over, he said there's nothing, there's no broken glasses, nothing like that. So, these are just little instances of kind of accumulated together, mixed with the rumors of it being haunted already and someone hanging themselves, kind of leads to me that, hey, maybe these aren't just coincidences. Maybe there's actually something there, you
Right.
know. That's probably the only, I guess, haunted house or building experience I've had that had, reoccurring instances, not just by me, but other people I knew.
Yeah, buildings like that and stuff where you have multiple people experiencing hauntings or whatever it is, and they all work there. I don't know. I've never been through that kind of situation, but I imagine at least there's got to be some kind of comfort there knowing that you're not the only one that, knows about this.
Yeah, definitely comfort and confirmation, but also at the same time, not, because when you're the only one there,
Well, yeah.
and everything adds up to, hey, this place is kind of seems like it's haunted, rather than just these coincidences happening or figments of your imagination. There's comfort in one end, and then there's also terror at the other end. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, are you saying then you're the kind of person that you're not necessarily thrilled that anything like that is happening around you? Because like some people, they ignore it. Some people, they actually get excited about it. Some people say, oh, it's nothing, don't worry about it, they can't hurt you. But it sounds like you're just like, if it happens around you, you notice it, you take it serious, and you prefer not to be doing it.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle. I definitely don't ignore, because as a Christian, I know the spirit realm is real. I know that there is spirits and apparitions. I can't explain it all or the functions of them. I don't think they're all demonic, but I don't try to find a ghost around every bush. And I'm not sticking my head in the sand. So, if it's there, I'll acknowledge it, like, I'll try to find a rational reason first. I think like the majority of people probably would. But if the conclusion kind of seems like, hey, this seems something odd, then I'm gonna lean more towards that, because at some point it's irrational not to. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think it really comes down to how people view the experience going into it, but also in the moment, So that was
Right.
the cafe, but you were, I guess you were smoking weed or something. You've had things happen to you while you were smoking weed. This sounds like actually it could be a funny story, but I don't know. I didn't go through it. So
Well, yeah, I was super hesitant on telling these. I got two stories drug related. And I was hesitant because, one, that's not me anymore. This was back in my BC days, before I surrendered my life to Christ, and back when I used to party pretty heavily. And another reason why is because a lot of people, they'll just instantly chalk it up as, well, you were under the influence, so therefore it's not real.
yeah,
And I understand the reasoning behind that, because there is auditory and visual hallucinations with things that can be figments of your imagination. But I think it's an important conversation to have, because I think there's something more there. And I think after my two scenarios, I want to bring a conclusion to you that I'm sure you're already aware of. But back in the day, even though I was raised in a Christian household, there was, being a pastor's kid. I don't know if I said that, but I was a pastor's, or I still am pastor's kid. I'm actually a pastor now. But I was raised in a Christian household, and I was a pastor's kid, which those PKs, those of who are pastor kids out there, that you guys know the immense amount of pressure as a pastor's kid has on them. You're instantly, because of who your dad is, or parents are, whether they're in ministry or of any sort, or a pastor, you're automatically put on a pedestal, and you're thought to live a greater life instantly. And I understand the standard of that, but at the same time, because your parents called to ministry doesn't make you called, right? It's not a guilty by association type of scenario, if that's the right term. But I had a lot of pressure as a kid, and a lot of expectations by the church and the world, and it kind of pushed me away. My heart got hardened by all of it, and I kind of had the mentality of I just want to figure it out myself. Like, yeah, I know my parents lived this, they had my dad took drugs, my mom, they all had their situations in their life where they warned me against and said, hey, don't do this, you're gonna just run into heartache. But yeah, I understand that, and you're probably right, but I just want to figure out myself. The stubborn teenager who knows everything once they're 16. So about 16, actually about 14, but 16, I started heavily getting into drugs, popping pills almost every day, drinking many times a week, sometimes a week straight, hard alcohol while popping pills, which isn't a good idea, and smoking weed every day, cigarettes, and I did other drugs as well, and just trying to numb it all, and trying to escape from who people thought I should be and who I wanted to be, and try to find myself. And of course, that's not the right way of doing it, numbing yourself with a substance, but that's the path I chose for until I was, I would say, 16 until 24. But I was at the point where I was smoking weed every day, and I just want to preface my first scenario with, it wasn't the situation with getting high that I'm going to tell. It wasn't my first time smoking weed. It's not like I smoked swag my whole life, and then someone finally handed me something good, and I was tripping out. I was smoking good medicinal quality on a daily basis, and I smoked weed every way possible, or had edibles, honey oils, hash, however you want to do it, any way possible. I did it. So there's nothing braggadocious about it. There's nothing in my statement that I'm boasting. I think it's nothing to boast about. I just want to preface it that this scenario that isn't just like, oh, you're just a lightweight, so therefore ... This one time I was at my buddy's house, and we were smoking weed, and we were smoking hash, which is basically a controlled substance of weed. It's cooked down into like there's different kinds, but like a tar or a some sort of substance like that, and it's basically very potent. So smoking that, and I felt different than ever before. When I was smoking, I felt like, and it sounds weird that my body was resonating or something like that, like deep within me. It felt like my being was resonating a frequency, and like a low hum. And I don't know how else to explain it, but I felt that within me. And so like I felt just off. It was different than any time before, even though I did it many times before. And I knew something wasn't right within me. So as the night goes on, my friend lived in this house. He just moved in, and it was like a 4-bed, 3-bath. It was a pretty big house. And he was the only one in it. He was waiting for roommates to come in. And so the house was pretty much empty except for his room, and then the room right next to his, which was a computer room. He did like computer programming and stuff. And so the rest of the house was pretty empty. Stuff was still in boxes, all that. So as the night went on, he was in his computer room, and I walked into the room through the doorway. And as soon as I walked into the doorway, I had an out-of-body experience. And right when I walked through the doorway, it was like I was watching myself through like a security camera in the corner of the room. And I'm standing there and I'm watching myself. I'm like, what the heck is going on right now? I'm just tripping out. And as soon as I took a step back out of the room, I saw through my eyes again and my body. And I stepped back through the doorway, and I saw myself through out of body again, through like what a camera in the corner of a room would be. I'm looking at myself almost like, I don't know if you remember back in the day, a PlayStation game called Metal Gear Solid.
No.
Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
Well, anyways, it was like a third person kind of view, a video game of this guy that's running around, but like the point of view would be like stationary. And as you would enter a new room, the camera view would change, but it was always stationary, and you'd watch yourself running around. And that's what it felt like. And I stepped back out of the room again, and I was back in my body. And I had just about enough of that, so I didn't go back in the room, because not necessarily a comforting experience to have.
Yeah.
But definitely a trip, but not the worst experience of the night. And so later that night, I went home, and I was laying in my bed, and I'm laying there, and all of a sudden I see this a figure standing at the foot of my bed. Mind you, this is off of just smoking marijuana, which isn't known to be a hallucinatory drug at all. But I'm standing there at the foot of I'm laying there, and at the foot of my bed, there's this humanoid figure is standing there, and this humanoid figure is solid black, blacker than black. I think I described it as the absence of light, because even the darkest room, this thing was blacker than that. And at the time, I thought it was a unique experience. But after listening to all your podcasts, I realized that these shadow figures, that's kind of par for the course. Many people say it's blacker than black, you know.
Yeah, and that's something that I actually have grown to understand more. When I first started hearing it, I wasn't exactly sure what people meant when they said blacker than black, but it really seems to be that, you know, and correct me if I'm wrong as far as what you're describing, but it really seems to be that like you could be in a black room, but the blackness that whatever this is just almost like consuming the blackness around it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my room was, you know, blacked out. I can't say pitch black, but it was blacked out to the point of where you would have trouble seeing your hand in front of your face. And when you could see a shadow figure in a black room, it's almost like in the daylight somebody casting a shadow on the ground. That's how clear you could see the contrast. Yeah, and it was the absence of light. That's the only way I could describe it. And so this humanoid silhouette shadow figure was standing at the foot of my bed. And this next part is super trippy, man, because this figure proceeded to grab my feet. And the only way I could describe this thing is that it felt like it was trying to pull the soul out of my body.
Wow.
Yeah. And it almost, I would imagine that, you know, if someone is wearing like tights or, you know, pantyhose or something, I don't know if people still wear that, but and someone were to pull the toes of that material and pull it in this as it stretches off of your leg and you could feel it moving down your leg. That's what it felt like when this thing would pull on my, you know, soul, I guess, because he wasn't pulling my body, but that's what it felt like. So every time this thing would pull on my toes, it would make this sound as I would feel like this elastic stretching over my being. It'd make this sound, like if something was charging up. And when it would let go, it would snap back into my body and it would make the sound all through my being, super loud. And when it would make that noise from my toes, when it would snap back like an elastic snapping back into my body, from my toes to my head, I would get this shot of this tingling sensation, almost like if your leg's falling asleep, but it would shoot through my body. So when he would pull back, whoop, and it would snap back, my whole body would just rush with this tingle feeling. And I'm laying there thinking, what is going on right now? And this figure, this thing, can continue to do it over and over again. And I'm sitting there thinking, you're just tripping out, dude. Like, this is all in your mind. You're making it up. And after what seemed probably about 4 or 5 minutes of this thing continuing to do it, I had enough, and I just jumped out of bed, man. And I jumped out of bed, I ran downstairs, and I just started pacing in the kitchen. Like, you're tripping out, man, it's all in your head. And, you know, the irony is that, you know, being raised in a Christian household, I knew the power in the name of Jesus. And because of my hardened heart and reprobate lifestyle, I refused to call on his name because I guess I didn't want to surrender yet, you know. And, you know, I think it's in John 1, it says that the world hates the light and loves the darkness because the light shines on the sin and exposes the sin. So therefore they hate the light, and that light that's coming to the world is Jesus. So I guess that applied to me, that I love my darkness greater than the light, and I would rather carry this burden of it than reach out for the life preserver that was tossed to me, you know. But yeah, man, that was insane experience, man. It felt like this being was trying to pull the soul out of my body.
Yeah, you know, you're not the first person to say that on the show, and what you said was almost verbatim for what the first time I ever heard of such a thing, which was episode 29, David. I've referenced him a couple times, and he was laying in bed with his wife, and he saw these two gray creatures, entities, that he said they were pulling him off the bed, but at the same time, it was like they were pulling something out of him. And he didn't describe the sounds that you described, though. I find that really interesting. Do you think this was all a purely spiritual experience, or do you think there was something mechanical? Because like the way you described the sounds, it sounds like they were using a machine to pull something out of you.
I think it was spiritual, man, because I think the shadow person was pulling it. And I think maybe the noise was the sound of my soul leaving my body and coming back in. I would imagine. I don't know. I take it more as if that sound wasn't a machine, but the sound related to the feeling in my being. So as what I would I guess call my soul being pulled from my body, the sound matched it, and when it was released and snapped back into my body, the sound matched it as well as the tingling sensation. So I would lean more towards, this was strictly spiritual, and that the being was doing the pulling and the sound was somehow related to my soul. It sounds super weird me saying that, but I don't know any other explanation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's your experience, so you explain it the best you can. You had another experience though, didn't you, when you were I guess on drugs or something like that with voices?
Yeah, the other one was related to psilocybin mushrooms, and I realized that is a hallucinatory drug, and so people are probably just going to discredit it, which is fine. I just want to have transparency here. I'm not trying to sell anything or validate my name. I just want, if people disregard the experiences, that's totally fine. But just being someone who took mushrooms a whole lot of times, this was completely different and stood out. And then after that, I'll tell you my conclusion of why I even wanted to tell you this is one time I was on taking psilocybin mushrooms, and I was tripping out, and I felt it coming on and increase, and I was what they call climaxing, and so I know the tracers and the tunnel vision and all these feelings that happen. And one thing that was different on this is that physically my body, I couldn't control my body. I kept, my head was going around in like circles. I probably looked like those Facebook videos where they see these people tripping on drugs and going completely crazy. I probably looked like that, a psychotic person I am, because my head was just rolling around, and I was still, throughout all these experiences, I still had a subconscious of soberness that I knew everything that was going on, but my body, I couldn't really control my motor function. That's a good way of saying it, my motor function. So, and as the high increased, the less I could control it, to the point of where I ended up the night on the couch squirming and kind of rubbing my body, like my arms and my legs and my head. And man, I don't know, it wasn't a violent convulsion. It was like a slithering, squirming kind of motion, which I think that was related to the drugs, and I'll explain. Because the next day, the frontal cortex of my brain, man, felt like it was on fire, like inside. And I realized that, I looked up, the frontal cortex involves motor function. So the shroom itself obviously was poisoning the front part of my brain. And I think that was related to the motor function. But the spiritual aspect of it is why I want to bring it up, is when I was on that couch, all of a sudden I started hearing a room full of voices, and there was no one in the house except for this guy and the girl. They're upstairs sleeping. And all of a sudden there's a room full of voices of people whispering, and I couldn't make out what they're saying, but it sounded like a room full of 100 people that were all talking to each other, but in whispers. It was just And behind or above, whatever, all the whispering, there was one voice that stood out. And it was this very deep, demonic voice. And it was all, and it had authority in its voice. And I couldn't make out what it was saying. And I don't know if it was because it was speaking a different language or because it just wasn't clear enough. But it was almost like it was commanding in its tone. And I felt a demonic presence there in the room. And after waiting it out, 5-10 minutes, I got up and I forced myself to, throw up and try to sober up, and it stopped. As soon as I got up, it stopped. But the experience itself, the reason why I brought it up is because both of these experiences, because the Bible Paul discusses in Galatians 5, he talks about all these different acts of the flesh. He talks about sexual immorality, idolatry, rage, selfishness, and all this stuff. And then he talks about something, witchcraft, and all this list of items he brings up. He says all these things, if you practice all these things, such things, you're not going to inherit the kingdom of God. This is like an unrepentant practicing lifestyle of these things. And one of the things is witchcraft. I'm sure you're aware of that word. Witchcraft is pharmakia in the Greek. And what that means is basically, it's where we get our word pharmacy, pharmacist, and it's those who administer or use drugs. And it's interesting because you think about, why is witchcraft and pharmakia, those who use drugs, tied in together? And it's not as if someone smokes a joint, then they're a witch or they're a Satanist or something like that. But just as in somebody who dabbles in witchcraft and sorcery and Ouija boards, as you probably know, and all the people I listen to, those who, even as something as simple as a Hasbro Games Ouija board that you find at Target, someone who dabbles in it, as innocent as may look, many times, most of the time, experience some sort of demonic activity. And so when you enter into this place of willingness to witchcraft and sorcery and, any kind of form of it, you're opening yourself, your spirit being, up to the demonic realm, and thinning the veil from ours to theirs. And when you perform witchcraft, obviously those who are serious into witchcraft and spells and sorcery, it obviously works, because they wouldn't keep doing it if it didn't work and they didn't have some sort of experience. Well, those who use drugs, in the same sense of those who open themselves up to demonic influence and thin or even pierce the veil to the other realm, so do the people who use drugs. Now, obviously, there's different level of drugs. On the low end, you have something like weed, which is often called the gateway drug. And on the other far end of it, you have stuff like LSD or DMT, that people usually, when they take it, they experience crazy things right away. And so what I'm not saying is your first time smoking a joint that you're going to be demonically possessed or something like that. But what I am saying is that you are willingly risking and opening yourself up to demonic influence, to thinning the veil, and to many times, I believe in my situations, piercing the veil. And I believe that God, even though I was running from him, he allowed me to experience these things, open up the veil to the other side, to allow me to experience them without actually them harming me or doing damage, or I don't know, or even being possessed, because I was never possessed by anything. But I believe he opened the veil and allowed me to see these things. And, many people who dabble in drugs, people who dabble in speed a lot, they say they always see shadow figures. Well, is it just a figment of your imagination, or are you really seeing through the veil. People who take DMT, they say that they experience, these higher entities, these spirit guides who seem to be benevolent, but as soon as someone mentions the name of Jesus Christ, they become malevolent and they turn on them. So is it just really a figment of your imagination, or are you really piercing the veil and seeing into the other realm? And I think there's many times where it could just be physically hallucinatory symptoms that your brain is playing tricks on you, but I think many times it's not. And especially with my first experience, I think that was an opening up of the veil.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with you. I think that a lot of times people that are, hallucinating on drugs and stuff, and they see these types of entities, I think that, a lot of times people are going to just say, oh, well, you're on drugs, you're just seeing things. But I think that there is a veil that's being thinned. And because I believe that we are very much spiritual bodies. I think we're more spiritual than what people believe, what they can imagine. And when you go on drugs and you start thinning that veil, you're going to see things from the other side, and it's going to scare the hell out of you sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And, what's interesting is that just like, I don't know if you heard the Sasquatch Chronicles episode, Confessions of the Pastor. Did you hear that one?
I'm not even sure what I never heard of Sasquatch Chronicles.
Well, it's a show. I mean, it's all right.
I'm playing.
No, I know. That's actually how I heard about your show. So.
Yeah, Confessions of a Pastor. Are you saying that's you?
No.
Oh,
I'm saying you should. If you haven't listened to him, you should listen to him. Dude, you should. I think there was 2 episodes. Dude, you should have this guy on your show, man. He would fit in well with the DNA of your show, and he's got some awesome stories, man. I could probably listen to this guy for hours, just demonic stories and casting out demons and stuff. But one thing that he said that really kind of checked a box for me was he said that the most, I'm not exactly sure how he worded it, but some of the most people who end up being demonically possessed in his experiences are the people who have drug use in their lives, which makes sense to me because as we just saw that we touched on in the scripture and as well as my own experience, that you're opening yourself up to the demonic, when, as you said, we're spirit beings, and there's biblical ways as Christians to have contact with the other side and with the Holy Spirit, and praying to Jesus. He's the mediator between us and God, but there's also a demonic aspect to it, and the wrong way doing that is through witchcraft and drugs. And I think it makes sense to what the guy was saying, that the most, in his experience, the people as a whole who have the most demonic possession in their life are the ones who have a history of drug use in their life. That was interesting.
Yeah, I remember that episode. I mean, I don't remember the details like you just spit out at us, but I remember the title. I'll have to go back and check it out. Now, you became a Christian and you had, I guess, some type of encounters with demonic entities after becoming a Christian through sleep paralysis. Is that right?
Yeah. So after, once I became a Christian, man, and I surrendered my life to the Lord, it was January 1st, 2012. And ever since there, man, I didn't look back. I became a new creation in Christ, man. And eventually somehow became a pastor. Although if you would have told me that January 1st, 2012, I would have just laughed at you and said you're crazy, because I can never imagine myself standing in front of people and teaching the word of God. But yeah, once I surrendered to the Lord and started living a new life, I got rid of the drug use and all that stuff. And shortly after that, I would say within 6 months, I think maybe even closer to 3 months, I had 2 encounters of a sleep paralysis, I guess, is the only thing I would categorize it as, because it just judging on other people's experience, if it fits into it. I don't actually remember being physically paralyzed, but you know, there's 2 times I was living with my roommates, and there's 2 times within, I would say within a couple weeks of each other, where I was awoken in the middle of the night by a thick, evil, demonic presence, to the point of where the evil felt like a tangible, physical thing. I mean, that's how intense this evil feeling was. And the room was darkened, and I felt this in my sleep, and I woke up. And the reason why I told my first dream stories was because I knew I knew I wasn't dreaming. I had lucid dreams, and I understood how to control them, and I knew the difference between sleep state and awake state, and I knew that this was not a dream. And so I cracked my eyes open, and I just felt this demonic presence. And at this time, as a Christian, I called on the name of Jesus, but it was hard to get out. It took 4 or 5 tries to try to get out the name of Jesus, and when I did, it immediately left, and the room cleared. And this happened twice, and I don't know if I just pissed off some demons, because I was living such a reprobate life, and then I finally surrendered to God, and they were coming back to give maybe a final. Who knows, man. But I think that's what happened. And yeah, man. I remember hearing your podcast about the lady who was a sleep technician, something like that. And I remember she talked about sleep paralysis and how the brain secretes some sort of paralyzing something in your body when you're sleeping, so you don't actually act out your dreams while you're sleeping. Is something like that correct?
Yeah, I think the episode you're talking about was with Lori, and yeah, I remember that as well. Yeah,
so when someone says they feel sleep paralysis, I guess a lot of it can be contributed to that, because if you wake up prematurely and that is still secreting through your body, then yeah, you could feel sleep paralysis. But what I don't understand is if that can be acute, I guess if the demonic presence people feel can be justified by the paralysis part, right? So maybe you can have paralysis without the demonic, but many people who have paralysis have some sort of, whether it's an alien abduction or demonic experience like I did. I don't see how the paralysis part justifies the demonic part, you know what I'm saying? Which makes me think there's actually demonic things going on during this time.
Yeah, and I also wonder if it's one of those things where maybe not everybody's experience is the same. Maybe sleep paralysis can be the result of different things, like the origin of what spawned the sleep paralysis on might, be different from person to person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I've never experienced sleep paralysis. There's a lot of things that we cover on the show that I've never experienced. So,
yeah.
But I do think that it's something that's very interesting, and I think that there are interesting ways to look at it as far as scientifically goes. But I don't think the scientifically side of it can explain some of the people's experiences when it comes to the supernatural, paranormal side of it either. But
right.
It's a big mystery, man. It's a big freaking mystery. Maybe I need to have sleep paralysis to understand it. I don't know.
Well, maybe. I mean, I guess the paralysis without the demonic part, but that's what I'm saying. I don't know if science can justify the demonic part by the paralysis part, but yeah, it's just a thought. I know you talked to a whole lot of people, and you got a whole lot of knowledge stored up in that head of yours. So I just thought maybe you could connect some dots that I just don't know how much they're related, of the two, but just a thought.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that, like I said, I think that it can vary depending on the situation, depending on the person's experiences leading into the sleep paralysis. But I definitely do believe that, sleep paralysis definitely can be a demonic attack. But
yeah,
like I said, I mean, I've heard so many different other people give more medical or scientific explanations to it that makes me feel like maybe sleep paralysis is a symptom of many different things. But yeah, so let me ask you this question here. I know you said that you think you might have met an angel. Please talk about that.
Well, I can't say for certain, man, but I'll tell my story, my conclusion. So one time at my old church building that we had a few years ago, this was maybe like 2016-ish, 2015, maybe something like that. And so after our church service, our church is located in, it's not a bad neighborhood, but it's in not the least best part of town. It accumulates a lot of homeless people and drug users who like to camp out and stuff. So anyways, after just, so many times of drug users, homeless people trashing the place, peeing on the door, crap in there and not cleaning up, you get frustration and you kind of get a little hardened to it, So I kind of didn't for a while. I mean, I guess I'm still working it out, but for a while I didn't have the best mentality towards homeless people. As Christians, we're supposed to be compassionate, but some God's working out. For a long time, I just didn't like people at all, and God had to really work that out of me. But this guy after church, before in our front door, there we have this big kind of awning hallway type thing in front of the front door, and I'm standing there after service, and this huge guy starts walking towards me, and he's probably like 6'4" and probably like 250, 275, this big guy, and he had kind of a homeless attire, like ripped dirty jeans, jacked up hair, scruffy, just kind of the homeless look that I'm used to seeing around there. And I'm 6'1" and like 215, and so not too many guys make me feel small out there, but this guy made me feel small. And as he's walking towards me, and he just passes me, doesn't look at me, doesn't acknowledge me, walks right into our church through the hallway, turns right into the sanctuary. And so I book it after him because, we have women in there. We've had crazy people come into church, man. We had some guy call himself Jesus one time. And
I love those people.
What was that?
I love those guys.
Yeah, we had one guy come in and said he was Jesus. Like, I'm Jesus, I've returned. And I'm like, no, you ain't, bro. Where's your stallion at, man? Where's your white horse? And but there's women, children there, so like you gotta be on the defensive, man. And when you're used to the people like this that are all drugged out coming in, you have a different approach to it. So I saw him coming in past me and turn right into the sanctuary. So I just booked it after him. By the time he turned right into the sanctuary, I was still by the front door. There's a good 50 feet or so. So I booked it, turned right in the sanctuary, and he wasn't there. And looked around all around in the sanctuary, and wasn't by the sound booth, wasn't anywhere. Nobody was reacting. There's groups of people in there talking. It was after service. Nobody's reacting. No one was talking. Well, if you go to the back right corner of the sanctuary, there's another door to where there's a hallway and a kitchen. So I'm like, okay, this guy booked it to this other door. So I ran to this other door and checked in the kitchen, not in the kitchen. In the hallway, not in the hallway. In the back patio, not in the back patio. So I ran back to the parking lot where this guy first walked through, not in the parking lot. I book it to the corner of the street, and looking down, up and down the sidewalk, all around the street, dude's not there. The front yard, dude's nowhere to be found. And this guy's 6'4", like I said, 250 or so. He's a big guy, not obese, but like, a belly on him, just a big framed guy. Bigger people, they're not, he kind of walked with a, kind of like a waddle. He's got a lot of weight to carry. So he's not a fast guy. I'll just say that, right? I'm a lot faster than this guy. And I booked it. As soon as he left my vision, I booked it. and I ran around this whole place. There's no way, unless he had a Harry Potter invisible cloak, there's no way this dude could have escaped my sight. No way. And I checked every corner of this place, and I did it fast. It wasn't like it was within a minute of me running around this place, and he's completely disappeared. And I was completely baffled by this. And I got in the car with my wife, and I told her the story. And in my mind, I'm thinking that verse, do not forsake the entertaining of strangers, for in doing so you may be, or do not neglect showing hospitality to strangers, for in doing so you could be entertaining angels, right? So that means that, in a sense, angels are shape-shifting, interdimensional. They can go from their dimensional to ours, shape-shift into human form, and interact with us, right? We see that in the Bible, and there's also that verse. So I'm thinking that verse is going through my mind, and when I told the story to my wife, she said the same thing, confirming it. I'm like, no way. And I've told that story to my congregation probably like over the last, I don't know if that was 5 years ago, probably like 3 times throughout the last 5 years, and no one's ever came up to me and said, hey, I saw that guy too. And that day, nobody, when I ran in the sanctuary, right when he got out of my vision, nobody was reacting. No one said anything to a 6'4" homeless looking man walking in the sanctuary, which he would have stuck out like a sore thumb. So, my conclusion was that God was trying to work something out in my heart, that to stop seeing be hospitable to strangers, because my first reaction to this guy was like, who's this fool walking up in here, right? Like the shepherd with the staff trying to protect the sheep,
Yeah.
like who's this guy walking up in here trying to, because we just had experiences in the past that didn't work out so good. So that was what was in my heart, to shut him out. But I think what the Lord was showing me is like, don't neglect showing this hospitality to strangers, and I think he was trying to soften my heart towards that. Hey, look, although these people may look a certain way, or they're in a certain position, not all of them have ill intent. But it was just interesting. I don't have 100% proof, man, that it was an angel, but I can't explain how this guy disappeared. And there was just confirmation from my wife telling me the same verse I was thinking in my mind. So I don't know, man, what do you think about it? But that's my story.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly could be something like that. I had a similar experience when I was in college. Me and my wife and a bunch of other people were out in a local city doing some street ministry, and got in a sticky situation. A drunk guy had a gun on him, and he was talking to us in a threatening manner. And I was the only guy in the group, and I'm trying to, diffuse the situation. It wasn't working out well. And then all of a sudden, this guy comes down and interjects into the conversation, talks to this guy like he knew him for years, calmed him down. He turns around, the guy who was all hyped up, he left. We started walking away. I said to the guy, thanks so much, man. I appreciate that. I said, and he said that, and what he said to me was that he was driving by and figured he knew what we were doing and thought that we needed help. And so he came down to fuse the situation, and I said, thanks so much. And I turn and I look to the people in our group and I say something, I turn around, it's gone. It's gone. And I'm like, where'd this dude go? Like, he said he was driving down the street. He's not getting in a car anywhere, nothing. And so,
Right.
Similar situation, but yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility, dude. I do. I absolutely think that. I think that's a definite possibility.
So you said he was talking to him like he knew him forever?
Yeah, but he didn't. That's the thing. Like, because I asked him, I remember asking him, and he said, no, I just was driving down the road and I figured I knew what you guys were doing and looked like you needed some help. So I stopped and pulled over. And he came in and acted like he knew the guy for years. And, the guy just, I don't remember exactly how it all unfolded, but I remember the guy calmed down and left and, all that stuff. And I don't even know what that guy's story was as far as the guy who was being aggressive to us, because I had seen him after that, and he was totally normal, absolutely normal. Let me rewind here. He was drunk, but he was much more normal than what he was that one night. Right. People get violent when they're drunk. You could say it was demonic possession or whatever. But one thing for sure is that guy who kind of got us out of that jam. I always just say maybe it was an angel, because I have no idea where he went. He just like straight up disappeared on us. And like, who's driving down the road at like midnight in the city, sees a group of people talking to another guy and just assumes that he knows what they're doing and that they need help? Like, you know,
Right.
And it wasn't like I was wearing overalls and a country kid and, you know, sticking out like a sore thumb. Like, I mean, I you know, so it's not like just by visually looking at me, he knew that I was out of place or anything. We've come across tons of people prior to that. I mean, we did this a lot, and that was the one time that I was like, man, this might end bad. And so I was fortunate.
Right. Yeah. And for the guy to talk to him like he knew him forever, like brought peace upon the guy to diffuse the situation.
Yeah.
And then just disappears. Yeah, man. Strange. You know, same thing with what I was doing with that. How can a 6'4", 250 plus guy who walks slowly just disappear from me and nobody else in the whole congregation ever saw him? You know what I mean? It's just strange, man. You never know.
Yeah, absolutely. You never know. You never know when you're entertaining angels. Always be hospitable. Good rule to live by. Listen, man, I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing these stories.
Hey, thank you so much, man. I've been listening to you for a while. I appreciate everything you do, man, and keep up the good work.
Well, that's the show, everybody. I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy it, please share the show with your friends. I don't care where you share the show or how you share the show. Just share the show if you enjoyed it, because that's the best thing you can do to help the show grow. Just share the show. And until next week, friends, stay safe, take care, and remember, the truth will set you free. But first, it'll piss you off.
Just feeling probably like you. I'm just drifting, probably right beside you. All the abyss, control from afar. What did we miss? Now we're left with the scars.
We love the lows but hate the highs.
Is the other side of the sun.
With all this glow, it's hard to hide.
It's bright.
We love the lows but hate the highs.
Is the other side of the sun.
With all this dark, it's hard to find.
It's bright.
Everybody wanna preach a happy median. I see they dopamine fix come from media. Now your spirit getting booked on Expedia. Soul searching like Long Island Medium. I should've been taught. Sleepwalk through life, but being woke is an insult. They should've been caught. They wanna flood it in fear by drowning us on the asphalt. We love the lows but hate the highs.
Is the other side of the sun.
With all this glow, it's hard to hide.
It's bright.
We love the lows but hate the highs.
Is the other side of the sun.
With all this dark, it's hard to find.
It's bright. Masking from elites, got us attaching what is free. Now we're rationing our needs for our soul.
Yeah, we're not fasting from belief. The smell of Sharpies right the streets, looting liabilities like it's gold.
Atomic number 79, Gucci, Prada, Jordan High. Sniff that line, it's on the house till you're sold.
The ones that keep us locked for the felony time, or the ones that fund the dollars for the BLM sign. Y'all ain't really doing what y'all supposed to. Y'all just follow suit like the rest do. Oh, yeah. We love the lows but hate the highs.
Is the other side of the sun.
With all this glow, it's hard to hide.
It's bright.
We love the lows but hate the highs.
Is the other side of the sun.
With all this dark, it's hard to find.
It's bright. Is the other side of the sun. It's bright, it's bright.
We love the lows but hate the highs.
Is the other side of the sun.
With all this dark, it's hard to find.
It's bright.
Hey, thanks for watching The Confessionals on YouTube. If you like what you heard, hit the subscribe button, hit the share button, and hit the like button. That would be a great help to me. And if you want more of The Confessionals on a weekly basis, every Thursday I come out with a special show just for members on my website. So if you want to check that out, go to theconfessionalspodcast.com, hit the join button, and become a member today. And every Thursday, you'll get a new show, and you can binge on previous shows, which there's almost 100 of them. So if you love the show, go ahead and check it out. But thank you very much for being here on YouTube and checking out the channel.